If you walk along Linden Street in Boise, Idaho, you might notice a large, old home set back from the sidewalk. Built in 1910, it's a craftsman-style house with a wide front porch and tall, narrow windows. But time has worn it down. The paint has faded, the wood has weathered, and the garden has long since been left untended. In the stillness of the day, it might seem like just another forgotten home, one of many scattered across older neighborhoods in small American cities. But for the people of Boise, this house has a name and a shadow. Some call it the Boise Murder House. Others know it as the Chop Chop House, a nickname as unsettling as the history behind it. The story that clings to this house is not told in loud voices or with dramatic gestures. It is whispered in hushed tones, as though the very walls could still hear. And at the heart of it is a young man named Preston Murr, 21 years old, full of life, with dreams still forming and a summer ahead of him. Preston's life wasn't extraordinary in the way history books define greatness, but it was full in the way that matters most to those who knew him. Friends remember him as someone who could turn a dull evening into a memorable one. He had a warm smile, a quick wit, and the ability to put people at ease. He was a son, a boyfriend, and a friend to many. Those closest to him say he had a protective streak. He cared deeply about the people in his circle and stood up for them when it mattered. He wasn't perfect. Like many young men his age, he had moments of impulsiveness, moments when his emotions ran ahead of his better judgment. But that was part of his charm too. He lived in the moment. The summer of 1987 was like many others in Boise. Long days where the sun lingered in the sky, evenings when the air was warm, but the shadows came early, and nights filled with the hum of crickets. Preston had no idea that this summer would be his last. That Monday began quietly, but soon took a somber turn. Preston attended a funeral, a reminder that life is fragile. Funerals often bring together people who haven't seen each other in years, and sometimes emotions run high. After the service, a group gathered, and alcohol flowed more freely than perhaps it should have. Words were exchanged, tempers rose, and before long, a fight broke out. Preston found himself in the middle of it. The police arrived, diffusing the situation and issuing citations for disorderly conduct. Eventually, everyone went their separate ways. But for Preston, the day's tension didn't end there. Later that evening, while he was home with his girlfriend, the phone rang. The voice on the other end was sharp and threatening. The caller spoke of harm, and the words were heavy enough to make Preston pause. His girlfriend saw the shift in his expression, the seriousness in his eyes. He called the police, reporting the threats, but without knowing who the caller was, there was little they could do. The uncertainty lingered. Preston couldn't shake the feeling that it might be connected to the earlier fight. Seeking answers, Preston called Daniel Rogers, a friend who knew many people in the area. If anyone could help figure out where the threats were coming from, it might be Daniel. They agreed to meet right away. Daniel brought along another acquaintance, Darren Cox. They met at a Circle K store on Boise Avenue, just a few blocks from Daniel's home. Preston was seen using a payphone there, speaking for several minutes, before joining Daniel and Darren in Daniel's car. The three then drove to Preston's apartment. They sat together, talking about the call, trying to make sense of it. But the conversation drifted toward another matter entirely: missing guns that Daniel believed had been stolen. It wasn't long before they decided to head to Daniel's house at 805 Linden Street so he could pick up a gun. After that, they drove around the neighborhood, looking for a place where the stolen guns might be hidden. They found nothing. The search led them back to Linden Street. At Daniel's house, Preston made one final call to his girlfriend. He told her where he was, updating her on the situation. She asked him to come home. He said he would soon, but he still wanted to see if he could find answers. She didn't know it then, but it would be the last time she heard his voice. By now, the night was deep. Midnight in Boise can be quiet, with most people asleep and only the occasional car passing under the streetlights. Inside the Linden Street house, though, the air was tense. The conversation turned heated. Alcohol had loosened tempers and clouded judgment. At some point, a physical struggle broke out. Preston, injured and frightened, made a desperate move. He ran out the front door, across the small yard, toward the house next door. The pounding on the door woke the neighbor from sleep. He hurried downstairs, unsure of what was happening. Peering out the living room window, he saw a man on his porch, distressed, calling for help. Before the neighbor could react, another man appeared, chasing the first into the night. Then there was silence. Opening the door slightly, the neighbor saw nothing unusual, just the stillness of the street. But when he turned to go back inside, he noticed dark stains on his door. The realization chilled him. He called 911 and stayed near the window, watching. Across the street at the Linden Street house, two figures were moving about, hosing down the front porch. At one point, they approached his property with a flashlight, scanning the ground. He waited, but no police arrived. Eventually, unsure of what else to do, he went back to bed. With the sunrise came clarity and horror. The stains on the neighbor's door were more visible now, and a trail led from his walkway back toward the Linden Street house. He called the police again. This time, officers arrived and began their investigation. Inside 805 Linden Street, they found blood in several rooms, along with evidence of violence in the basement. But there was no sign of Preston. For days, Preston's whereabouts remained a mystery. Then, in a quiet stretch near the Idaho-Oregon border, the search came to a tragic end. His remains were found near Brownlee Reservoir. The discovery confirmed what many had feared but had not wanted to believe. Evidence from the house, combined with witness accounts, especially the neighbors' detailed observations, painted a clear picture of what had happened that night. Daniel Rogers emerged as the central figure in the events, with Darren Cox playing a supporting role afterward. The legal process moved forward, steady and deliberate. The charges were laid out, the evidence examined, and the verdict delivered. Daniel Rogers was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Darren Cox received a 6-year sentence. For Preston's loved ones, justice had been served in the legal sense. But justice does not erase grief. It does not fill the empty space left by a son, a boyfriend, a friend. The house on Linden Street still stands today. It is quieter now, the years softening its once dark notoriety. But for those who know its past, it is impossible to see it as just another old home. Sometimes, when the wind is still and the neighborhood is hushed, it's easy to imagine Preston walking down that street, the sound of his laughter carrying through the summer air. The story of Preston Murr is one of a life cut short, not in the blaze of a headline, but in the quiet heartbreak of those who loved him. His friends remember the way he could light up a room. His girlfriend remembers the warmth in his voice. When we speak his name, we keep his memory alive, not as a victim defined by tragedy, but as a young man who lived, laughed, and mattered. And perhaps, in telling his story softly, we let the echoes of Linden Street fade and the memory of Preston shine a little brighter.